alongside one of America's conservative heroes. Governor Scott Walker is nationally renowned for his commitment to principle, his courage, and his values. And it's all for you. It's all for the people of Wisconsin, who deserve a leader who respects their will and their wishes. In the governor's conference room is my favorite panel in all of our beautiful state capitol. Right above where the governor and I sit at the top of that table is a panel on which is painted, "The will of the people is the law of the land." Governor Scott Walker lives with your will in his heart every day. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the best governor in this country, your governor, Governor Scott Walker.
Warmer in here than where I was this morning. I was a little before 7 out in Balsam Lake up in Polk County, and it was 38 degrees in the air and 38 degrees in the weather. I was there for the 49th annual Governor's Fishing Opener. I got to tell you, I didn't catch a fish like I did last year. Last year I was up at Cable and got one on the third cast, about a 14.5 inch walleye. That's no fish today, but I'm glad that I was able to get out there and get back here today to join with all of you here for this great convention. First off, I want to say thank you. On behalf of Tonette and I and our family, Matt and Alex, and certainly on behalf of Rebecca and Joel and their family as well, we appreciate all the help that you provided. As I look around this hall, so many of you helped us out in 2010. So many of you helped us out again unexpectedly in 2012. And so many of you are ready to help us out again in 2014. Are you ready to help us with 4 more years? We appreciate all the hard work, all the yard signs, all the phone calls, all the door-to-door, all the flyers and everything else. We appreciate the financial contributions that so many of you and others like you across the state have made. But most of all, I want to tell you over the last several years, more than any of that, what I appreciate the most in our family is your prayers. We appreciate that. People often ask, how did you get through some of those toughest times? It was the prayers from so many of you here and across the state, and many prayers we even received from across the country that sustained us. And so thank you very much for that. Sometimes it's hard to imagine, but do you remember what things were like 4 years ago here in the state of Wisconsin? Yep. Things have gotten pretty bad. Sometimes I think so much has happened in the last several years, we forget about how bad things were here in the state of Wisconsin 4 years ago. During Jim Joel's last term, we lost more than 130,000 jobs in the state. The budget deficit had grown to more than $3 billion. And taxes, well, they were going up. The future of our state back 4 years ago looked pretty dark. But thankfully, today, things are much different. We're turning things around. We're heading in the right direction. We're moving Wisconsin forward. Or as I like to say, Wisconsin's back on. Wisconsin's back on. You see that budget deficit we talked about? It's gone. The days of those budget deficits are gone, and instead we replaced it with nearly a $1 billion budget surplus. How about that? Wisconsin's back on. Taxes are down too. In fact, we put the power back in your hands. We reduced the burden on you, the hardworking taxpayers in this state, by nearly $2 billion. While other states have raised taxes, we've lowered taxes by some $2 billion. How about that? Wisconsin's back on. In fact, that's part of the reason why Rebecca and I kicked off our campaign on April 15th of all days. Because we wanted to send a strong and powerful message, and we kept our commitment. We said we would lower the tax burden every year we're in office. In fact, we just signed about 2 months ago another $500 million plus in property and income tax relief. That was the third time we reduced your tax burden in less than a year. And it's simple, because when I travel the state, I got to tell you, I don't hear people say to me, hey, Scott, you know, we don't think we send enough money to Madison. I just don't hear that. I don't hear people say my taxes are too low, or they're just about right. When I hear time and time and time and yet time again across the state, from one end of the state to the other, people telling me if you want to continue the economic recovery that got us a surplus in the first place, you need to put that money firmly in the hands of the people who earned it, and that's the hard-working taxpayers of Wisconsin. You see, it's a pretty simple concept. Sometimes they don't understand it in Madison, they certainly don't understand it in Washington, but I have a simple way to explain it. You see, Tonette and I, last February, celebrated our 21st wedding anniversary, and I remember more than 2 decades ago when I went to go shopping at Kohl's as a newlywed, I made a critical mistake. I bought something at the price it was marked at, right? And so I came back and Tonette said to me, you can never go back to Kohl's again until you learn how to shop there. And so I've been well trained over the years. I know when I go to Kohl's, if I'm going to buy a new Badgers or Packers or Brewers shirt, I go to the rack in the front that's got it marked. It was $29.99 and now it's $19.99. And then when I go to buy it, I get out my Kohl's credit card and I get another 20 or 25 or 30% off. And then because I know enough going to Kohl's, I looked in the Sunday insert and I pulled out that little scratch off that gets me another 10 or 15% off on top of that. And then because our family goes there all the time, I get my Kohl's cash out. And by the time I'm done, they're paying me to buy the shirts. Right? At least it seems like it. So how does a company like Kohl's, a great Wisconsin company, how do they make money? Volume. They make it off of volume, right? They could charge you that $29.99 and make a whole lot of profit per product, or they could lower the cost, particularly for those who shop there frequently, and broaden the base and sell more products and increase their volume. The same principle applies to your money. The government can either hoard a lot of it and tax you at high levels, or we can reduce those rates, put it back in your hands, and as consumers and employers, you can put that money to work. That's what we choose to do, and because of it, Wisconsin's back on again. Now, with that in mind, we decided we're going to continue that trend. In fact, when it comes to property taxes, you'll be pleased to know that because of our Republican reforms, property taxes this year will be more than $100 lower on a typical home than they were last December. And even more exciting for me, at least, than for all of you who pay property taxes, the property tax bill, I should say, this December will be lower in December of 2014 than it was in December of 2010. And if you give me a chance to serve as your governor again 4 years from now, I want property taxes in 2018 to be lower than they were this December, which means they'll be lower than they were in 2010. How about that? Wisconsin's back on. You know, best of all, as I look around the state, I see one of the most exciting things to report to you today is that more people are back to work again. Over 100,000 new jobs have been created since we took office. In fact, last year alone, we saw the largest private sector job growth we've seen since the 1990s. But we're not done yet. And that's part of the reason we're running again. We believe that Wisconsin's back on, but we think we are much better off than we were 4 years ago, but not as great as we can be. And with another term, we can take us even further together with those Republican reforms. If you don't remember anything else today, if you don't remember anything else, the real story for the media to report about this convention is that Wisconsin is better off today than it was 4 years ago, and will be even better going forward 4 years from now if Republicans continue to be in charge of our state government. That's the real story. Not all these other side issues, Wisconsin is better off today than it was 4 years ago, and it will be even better 4 years from now if Republicans continue to reform our state government. That's the real story. That's the real message. Don't let others tell you there are other issues out there that are more important. Wisconsin is better off today than it was 4 years ago. And with your help, that's exactly what it's going to be 4 years from now. Think about it. You know, you heard earlier today from one of my sons, and a little bit you're going to hear from both Matt and Alex. But for college students and working families across the state, Wisconsin's better off because we froze tuition for the first time in our state's history for 2 years at all of our University of Wisconsin campuses. Give us a chance to come back, and we're going to continue to freeze tuition for the next 2 years because we want to make that great education affordable for those students and for those working families in our state. I'm going to tell you, as a parent of 2 sons in college, I particularly can relate to that issue. It's one of those where that's really about the American dream, is giving that education, giving that opportunity. As Matt talked about earlier, helping us build it from the ground up by empowering those young people with the great new ideas to go out and succeed. We're the ones that are helping making that affordable. We think about the state vacations. You know, it's great. More families in the state are planning vacations, and tourism spending is up. I announced it just yesterday across the state. Last year alone, we saw a 4% increase in tourism, 18% increase in the economic impact of tourism in the past 4 years, or in the past 3 years, I should say, since we took office. Wisconsin's back on. And more families across the state are going to sleep at night with the comfort of knowing that their families have access to health care for the first time in our state's history. It didn't happen 4 years ago when Democrats controlled state government, when the Democrat was the governor. No, now for the first time in our state's history, everyone living in poverty has access to health care under Medicaid because we care about lifting people up who are living in poverty. We just don't want to make it a permanent way of life. On top of all that, the unemployment rate, as we just saw in the last few weeks, has dropped below 6% for the first time in more than 5 years. Wisconsin's unemployment rate is not only lower than the national average. When you think about where we were 4 years ago, the beginning of 2010, when we had a Democrat governor and Democrats in control of the state assembly and the state senate, the unemployment rate at that point was 9.2%. Today, some 4 years later, the unemployment rate is 5.9%, and it continues to drop. Our goal is to get it to 5.5% by the middle of this year and continue to drop it so that more people can go back to work. Wisconsin is back on. You see, it's a simple concept. It's a simple concept going forward. Our vision for the future is simple. We believe in less government, less dependence on government, and more dependence on hard work and personal pride. Yes. Right? That's real progress. And it's one of those things I'm proud to say as I travel the state, I see what's happening in this state. Yeah, sure, we had to make some tough decisions in the past few years, and so many of you here, like I said, were there to support us, most of all in your prayers. Those tough decisions, I'm proud to say, today have paid off. Unlike some other surrounding states who refused to make those tough decisions, our decisions have paid off, and Wisconsin is better because of it. I see it every day as I travel the state, you know, from one end of the state to the other. We see it when we go to factories and farms and small businesses. We see it at hospitals and clinics and schools from one end of the state to the other. I have the honor of meeting some amazing people who are doing some incredible jobs in this state. And what I see day in and day out as we travel this great state of Wisconsin is that things are definitely improving. But we need to continue to move forward. 4 years ago, when I announced I was running for governor and spoke before you here at this very convention hall, I got into that race because Tonette and I were worried. We were worried, like many of you here, that our sons might grow up in a state, well, it wasn't as great as the Wisconsin we grew up in. 4 years later, and I'm proud to say to you here today that because of those positive Republican reforms we've enacted over the past several years, I have faith that there's hope, real hope for my sons and everyone else in their generation. Not only that today is better, but it'll get even better going forward. That's why on April 15th, Rebecca Kleefisch and I announced our campaign for governor and lieutenant governor. We're joined by our tremendous families and so many of you as we travel the state of Wisconsin, and that's why we're affirming it yet again here today. You see, I'm asking for your vote and your support because I'm confident that together, working together, we can do it. Working together, we can move this state forward. Working together, there's no end to how much better things could be. We're here today to celebrate the fact that 4 years ago, our future of this state was headed in the wrong direction. We don't want to go back to the days of double-digit tax increases, billion-dollar budget deficits, and record job loss we saw when Democrats were in charge. Instead, we want to build on the positive foundation that allowed us to balance a budget, do so in a way that helped put more people to work, do so in a way that helped reduce the tax burden, freeze the tuition of students across the state, and more importantly, just overall create a better quality of life for the people of our state. We've made tremendous progress over the past 4 years. Today, Wisconsin is indeed better off than it was 4 years ago, but we're not yet as great as we can be. With your help, with another term going forward, we will show, not just those of us as adults, but we will show our sons and our daughters, our grandsons and our granddaughters, that Wisconsin is not only great, it's even greater than the one that we grew up in. With your help, we're going to continue to move Wisconsin forward. Thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for what you're going to do between now and November 4th. And thank you for helping us show the people of this state and the people of this country that Wisconsin is indeed back on. God bless you.